Welcome to another episode of Someone Make These Games! I'm your host, Ethan, and today we'll be talking about a mobile port that still hasn't happened. In the year 2009, Sega asked fans for ideas for a new Sonic game to port to iOS. 2 years later, Sonic CD was on the App Store. And Sonic CD was just as great as it always was, maybe a little too great. While everything from the original was in this version, if you were especially familiar with the original, you might notice that this is not the same game that was released on the Sega CD all those years ago. Unlike the ports of Sonic 1, Sonic 2, and Sonic Spinball on the App Store at the time, this game was not just an emulated Genesis game. It was completely remade from the ground up by a man named Christian Whitehead in his own game engine, the Retro Engine. Not only did it bring Sonic CD into widescreen, but it also improved his moveset, giving you the option to have a spin dash more akin to that in Sonic 2. Also, Tails is now playable. By 2013, the previous versions of Sonic 1 and Sonic 2 received Update 2.0, basically replacing the old games with completely remastered ones by the taxman himself, Christian Whitehead, and his coworker and friend, Stealth's company, Headcanon. These remade games featured more features than ever featured in a previous feature, such as Knuckles in Sonic 1, or a cancelled zone finished and reintegrated into Sonic 2. These ports breathed new life into an already great Sonic 1 and Sonic 2. And what about Sonic Spinball? It was eventually removed from the App Store. Why? Because it's Sonic Spinball? I don't know, don't ask me. Shortly after Sonic 1 and 2 received the Whitehead treatment, fans were wondering, what Sonic game would be the next in the Retro Engine? And the obvious answer was Sonic 3 and Knuckles. I mean, it only made sense, especially since we already had 2 Sonic the Hedgehog 4s rotting in the App Store. Not having a third one just didn't make any sense. When I was younger, I always found it bizarre that Sonic 3 was never on the App Store. But that wasn't that much of a big deal, because I still got to experience Sonic 3. Sort of. But I kept dreaming that one day, I would go into the App Store and see Sonic 3. But we did see Christian Whitehead's Retro Engine returned with a completely new game, Sonic Mania. Which is cool, I guess. It is a great game, one might even claim, on par with the Genesis games. But where were Sonic 3 and Knuckles? They were right here on Christian Whitehead's phone. 3 years before Sonic Mania, a proof of concept video showcasing a Sonic 3 and Knuckles port was uploaded by Christian Whitehead's YouTube channel, celebrating Sonic 3's 20th anniversary. So you may be asking, what's the big deal, Sega? Where is Sonic 3 and Knuckles? And unsurprisingly, all the answers pointed towards one man, Michael Jackson. Enough said on that. Don't worry, he will be back. But Sonic 3 wasn't the only thing on fans' minds. Even though Sonic CD had been ported to the Xbox 360, PS3, and PC, the remakes of 1 and 2 were nowhere to be found for the longest time. This was most likely because Sonic 1 and 2 already received various re-releases in various forms, and Sega did not want to detract from those previous sales, which were basically just emulated Genesis games. Or at least, most of them are. But with Sonic Mania, I would say hope began to rise that we would soon see these widescreen versions of Sonic 1 and 2 again. But before that, a quick tangent. Quick tangent! What's the deal with widescreen anyway? Like, I get it for Sonic. I mean, it's going pretty fast, and you kind of need big field of view. But so many people these days take it as the indicator of whether a game is good or bad. Like, it's not that big of a deal. 4x3 isn't that bad, right? But the widescreen people got what they wanted, because in 2022, all the fans' requests were finally answered.
We are excited to announce we're working on a new compilation that includes Sonic 1, 2, Sonic 3 and Knuckles, and Sonic CD.
Was it worth it? Was it worth all the begging to Sega? Well, I think it was, because I have no problem with Sonic Origins. I actually really like Sonic Origins. Like, a lot. I pre-ordered the Digital Deluxe shortly after it was announced, and I bought the Physical Plus version day one. So yeah, if you're a Sonic fan, I apologize for all my horrible opinions. If not, buy this game. It's probably the best way to play some of the greatest games of all time. It included Christian Whitehead's Sonic CD, Sonic the Hedgehog, and Sonic the Hedgehog 2. And for the first time ever, officially, we would see Sonic 3 and Knuckles in widescreen running in the retro engine. Apparently, its rushed release came at a cost, namely, a lot of bugs. I didn't personally run into that many bugs, but for Sonic fans, nothing is ever enough. You don't believe me? Here's another example. Sega was kind enough to give us new song tracks exclusive to Origins for free. How did the fans react? Utter outrage. Well, these new songs weren't entirely new. They were actually the prototypes from Sonic 3 that were going to be used for various stages, but were later taken out due to a new composer joining the team that was a pretty big name at the time. Michael Jackson. Yeah, it's a pretty well-known fact that Michael Jackson composed a couple songs for the Sonic 3 soundtrack. While it's not confirmed, by now most people have kind of just accepted it as fact. And it really makes sense, especially when you compare the songs composed for Sonic 3 and later songs that would come out by Michael Jackson and other related parties. And even though these so-called legendary Michael Jackson tracks were removed, I don't really have a problem with that. I mean, realistically, what else could have been done? The new tracks, I think, work just as fine. While some are definitely worse, I think some are equal, or maybe even better in some cases. I guess what I'm saying is I like the soundtrack to Sonic Origins.
That's a terrible opinion. You must be pretty stupid to say that this was their only option. Have you listened to the prototypes? They sound infinitely better than the songs that ended up being in Sonic Origins. Do you know why they sound so bad? Probably not, because you're stupid. It's actually because they based it from the MIDI files from the Sonic and Knuckles collection. Which is pretty stupid and doesn't make any sense. Honestly, they should have just paid the Michael Jackson estate for the songs. I mean, it's Sega, they're such a big company and they always make such good games. But for some reason, they always have to screw it up for Sonic. Oh!
He threw a Sega Genesis controller at me! Who does that? Enough said on that topic. So yeah, Sonic Origins has some issues, but none of them really made this collection completely unplayable, which is really saying something for Sonic. I mean, Sonic 06 speaks for itself. Even in the realm of Sonic ports though, just look at the GBA port of the original Sonic. What did they do to him? What did they do to Sonic? Yeah, enough of that. So, with Sonic Origins, the future of classic Sonic games looked pretty bright. And then we got Sonic Superstars, which, even though it isn't a retro engine game, or even trying to look like a Genesis game, it still pulls off the classic Sonic style charm, in a way that Sonic 4 wishes it could. And while I don't know what Christian Whitehead or Headcanon are up to, or if they even intend to delve into any further Sonic projects, or projects with Sega in general, I don't think this is the end of the retro engine Sonic games. And you probably know what I'm insinuating. And yes, you're right. A Sonic Spinball remake! No, actually, I'd rather see an actual platforming game like, I guess, 3D Blast. Possibly even cooler, what if we got Sonic Mania 2? But we have bigger matters at hand. Where is Sonic 3? Okay, I know I already asked this. It's on Christian Whitehead's phone, of course. But why isn't it on our phones? Especially with Sonic Origins dealing with the Michael Jackson problem, you would think that we'd have Sonic 3 on mobile by now. But where is it? As more and more time passes, it's just getting weirder and weirder, wondering where Sonic 3 and Knuckles are in the App Store. Even just last year, mobile phones got Sonic Mania Plus, oddly enough through a Netflix subscription. All of this just doesn't make any sense. Where is Sonic 3 and when is it coming to mobile phones? But you might be confused. Why would I want a mobile port? I do have Sonic Origins. And if I really wanted it on my phone, I could get a pretty good port. But this isn't about me. It's about the Sonic name. Many people consider Sonic 3 the best game in the series, and with Sega lately wanting to market Sonic everywhere, especially on mobile phones, seeing the addition of Sonic 3 only makes sense. I think that Genesis controller gave me a concussion. What am I doing? I'm supposed to be talking about Nintendo games. It's Mario Month, for goodness sake. I'm not supposed to be talking about this. But Sonic isn't bad anymore. All the time. And not only could this complete the trilogy of Sonic games on the iPhone, revitalized interest in the mobile ports could bring quality of life improvements missing from them into these versions as well. Like the Drop Dash, or playable Amy, or even Knuckles in Sonic CD. But you may ask, if they do add all of these Sonic Origins quality of life improvements to the already existing mobile phone ports, and add the Sonic 3 port, then what's even the point of Sonic Origins? Well, there's tons of reasons to still play Origins. For one, it's not on the phone. Just like how people hated when Sonic 1 and 2 were only available on phones, Sonic Origins doesn't have to be the only way to play these games. I mean, it's not like you're gonna bring your Nintendo Switch to a business venture. There really is no reason why the mobile ports and Sonic Origins can't both be the definitive renditions of Sonic's first adventures. But if we look back to the time between the original proof of concept for Sonic 3 on mobile in 2014 and the birth of Sonic Origins in 2022, a lot happened behind the scenes. And though we'll probably never get to know the full picture, what we do know is that the Sonic 3 and Knuckles port, as we see it in Sonic Origins, is not the fully realized dream. Alongside that original Sonic 3 and Knuckles proof of concept was another interesting display of what the Sonic 3 mobile port could have in store. Stealth, who worked alongside Christian Whitehead on the Sonic 1 and 2 ports, and previously gained notoriety for his vastly superior Sonic the Hedgehog Game Boy Advance port, and Knuckles and Sonic 1 hack, released what seemed to be a video of a wholly unique Blue Spheres level, which eventually we would see in Sonic Origins. But this wasn't the full extent of what the Taxman and Stealth both wanted for Sonic 3. Detailed in a video campaigning for Sega's adoption of the Sonic 3 mobile port, Stealth goes on to describe two other features that we would eventually see in the Sonic Origins port, the first being a sprite mishap where the wrong character was displayed.
I did fully intend to replace the Eggman sprite in the Flying Battery Zone boss when you're playing as Knuckles. Yeah, they just forgot to update that sprite since it was separate from the other ones. They did one for the generic sprite, and then they're like, okay, all done.
Additionally, when asked on their autonomy with the project, having previously reintegrated Hidden Palace Zone into Sonic 2, Stealth responded that they were looking into making the multiplayer levels available in the single-player format.
One of the things that we would like to do, if they allowed us to, would be to take the zones that are used in the two-player multiplayer mode and actually size up the graphics and turn them into full single-act one-player zones. They wouldn't be included in the proper game or anything, but they would be kind of like a boss attack in Sonic 2 was put in the time attack mode, so you can enter them from there.
And they were added, but I don't think it really panned out like how they were planning in the first place. They are available in a time attack one-player mode, but the physics are still pretty off, and besides Tails' flight, you can't really use any of the character's abilities. That means no drop dash for Sonic, no glide for Knuckles, and no hammer thing for Amy. The worst part about the physics has to be the weird jump. I know this is in the normal two-player mode, but I thought all of this was supposed to fix it and make it like the normal one-player mode. It just makes me wonder, is this really what he meant when he said
Full single-act one-player zones?
Full single-act one-player zones.
I don't know, maybe. But the levels look really nice.
We've also come up with a few original ideas, not nothing too hardcore.
Sonic Mania reference. But even though most of the ideas they had did make it into the Sonic 3 port, there were some that weren't realized at all. And two of them, pretty drastic. The first regards cutscenes that would be changed for this release.
That's kind of gotten blown a little bit out of proportion. I mean, there's the one where we moved Knuckles' intro scene to Angel Island when you're playing the full game, and there may be an intermediate cutscene. Other than that, I'm not real sure there would actually be any other new scenes.
Oh.
So yeah, they didn't change the cutscene. Knuckles still gets bombed in Mushroom Hill Zone, and then suddenly goes to Angel Island for some reason? It couldn't have taken a lot to change this. Wait! The Sonic 3 proof of concept had Knuckles in Angel Island! They already had it finished! This must have just been some weird Sega thing. The other feature changes the game completely, and I would actually be quite interested in seeing how it could have played out. When asked if the mobile port would just contain Sonic 3 or Sonic 3 and Knuckles, this is how he replied.
Well, since they haven't talked to us very much about it yet, I don't know what they think. What we were going to try to do was try to include 4 different gameplay modes if we could actually do that. Sonic 3, Sonic and Knuckles, Sonic 3 and Knuckles, and then complete Sonic 3.
Of these 4 game modes, the most interesting is the complete Sonic 3. The way he explains it sounds kind of similar to Fan ROM Hack, in which a version of Sonic 3 and Knuckles is presented that restores the original idea of Sonic 3.
For one, the level order would be in the original intended order, where you would play Flying Battery after the Carnival Night Zone. Also, probably some musical differences if we could get the original music in the game, which that's one of the major problems. I'm not sure that we can.
What could have been, and what still could be, from a Sonic 3 mobile port, bringing in new features previously not able to be experienced, is a really exciting thing. I think, though, the biggest reason I want Sonic 3 and Knuckles on mobile is my memories with the other Sonic mobile ports. And yes, even these 3. But just playing those mobile Sonic games takes me back to those days, so many years ago. And no matter if I was running around Palm Tree Panic Zone or drowning in Chemical Plant, the Sonic mobile games could always promise a great time. And while the 2010s were hard times for the Sega franchise, I remember them as the happiest days of my life, and I haven't forgotten. These memories that continue to amaze me are all but over now. And though Sonic 3 and Knuckles was never a huge part of those memories, it still was something special to me, even if I had to experience it through Sonic Classic Collection. And I think seeing it finally join the rest on the iPhone would be beyond amazing. So, Sega, the pressure is on, and I'm not some kind of developer, so take this thing from me. But you probably won't give it a second thought. I can see you got better things to do, so just take your things and leave. Hard times. Happiest days of my life. Hard times gone by. So, that about wraps it up. Maybe we will one day see Sonic 3 and Knuckles coming to mobile phones. Even if it is with the Michael Jackson soundtracks removed. But either way, I don't really care, because I'm fine with Sonic Origins for now. But either way, it doesn't really matter. It's just kind of weird that Sonic 3 never ended up coming to phones. Ethan, I'm you from 10 years in the future. We finally got Sonic 3 on mobile phones, but Knuckles Chaotix still hasn't been ported to any consoles. This is a terrible fate. The only way that you can save the future is to talk about why we need a port of Knuckles Chaotix.
Isn't that game terrible?
No, it's actually really good. You should play it.
But it costs like $400.
Well, you gotta do it anyway. The future depends on you.
I just want to play a Mario game.
Why does it have to be the Sega Genesis controller? Thank you for watching. Someone make these games. Tune in next episode to watch Ethan struggle to give a reason why anyone should give a crap about Knuckles Chaotix. Someone make these games!